Hello and welcome to another gesture drawing video. So I'm just gonna get started with a few 1-minute figures and then transition to some 2-minute gestures. I've been away for a while, actually. Haven't drawn regularly in a long time. And starting to feel it, right? When you start doing gestures again. After a long hiatus, you figure out you're lingering on things you shouldn't be lingering on. So yeah, just picking up the practice again. And yeah, so just working with the head here. Head, neck, shoulder relationship is super important. Once those are established, the rest of the figure just flows easily. Yeah, so here just indicating the pectorals, the deltoid, kind of just working in this upper region. The first few drawings are going to be fussy. I mean, that's the best way I can explain it. Even though, yeah, with the gesture, I'm trying to get myself to not focus on finish, right? Or specific details. Just making sure that things are in the proper proportions. I mean, that's like the main goal. Just indicating the direction of forms, suggesting detail when it's actually not there. That's the entire strategy here. And recently, I've been looking at Michael Hampton's book and videos. He recently released a whole book on gesture drawing, which is incredibly incredibly good. Yeah, really good. I've just started reading it, and already I feel inspired to, just engage this activity, this muscle, just build up skill in this. And yeah, here I'm just indicating the shoulders. So as I do these drawings, you'll notice I try to lean towards more anatomical kind of drawings, just indicating the musculature. That's just the instinctive thing that I start to do nowadays, because I feel like I understand the anatomy now more than I used to. So it's like I automatically try to draw the anatomy pretty much every opportunity I get. um, so I have to refrain from that. Actually, that's what I'm trying to do, is just be less literal with the anatomy and lean more towards like the flow of forms. That's easier said than done. But yeah, I'm just kind of allowing myself to do whatever's coming, right? Whatever's happening, and just allowing it, and I'll assess like later what was okay, what was good, what was not good. And the main thing is to do the thing, right? To just sit down and draw. That's been like the biggest challenge for me for a while. Yeah, it's just sometimes difficult to start, you know? That's where the most resistance is. At least that's where I feel it the most. Um, Once I get started, it's like smooth sailing from then on. I can just lose myself in the process, and there's no more overthinking. At least not about whether I should draw or not, but more overthinking and like, okay, what do I actually do here? Um, so with gestures, trying to be more direct as I possibly can be, while still kind of leveraging what I know about the figure and what I see. So it's like this constant back and forth. Okay, I see this, and I know that this looks like this, right? It's like the abstract knowledge I have of the anatomy competing with what I see, which is kind of difficult to balance for the time being. But I think once I do enough of these, it should take care of itself, right? Like most things in art, you just kind of force yourself to do any specific thing for very long. It's just tiresome, right? To be aware of. You have to be aware of so many different things when you're drawing that you will forget to be aware of this other thing that you're trying to be aware of. Uh, so yeah, so these exercises, like this gesture session I'm doing, is just for fun, you know, just for the sake of filling up the pages, spending the time making the drawings, right? Just the time in the practice, rather than trying to come up with perfect drawings, you know, just getting rid of that perfection mentality, right? And just going for kind of what I can instinctively do, kind of becoming familiar with what I do instinctively, you know, that's also important. It's like I've been away from drawing for so long that I've kind of forgotten what my voice is, you know, what I like to do in certain poses, and just familiarizing myself with that again. Uh, yeah, and this time kind of just sharing the process with you guys, with the whole community at large, right? With YouTube, and even, you know, streaming, setting up for streams as well. Just share the process, you know, sharing what I'm doing, because I mean, I've watched so many others who have inspired me to take up the pencil, you know, and forge ahead. Steven Zapata, you know, owe a huge thanks to him for his wonderful content. And recently been watching Broken Draw. That's a great channel, talking about drawing for imagination, dynamic sketching, and you know, going back and watching old favorites like Paul Kupinski, Kim Jung-gi, and Steve Houston. I mean, sometimes just watching them makes you better artists. I feel like you can just watch them draw and feel like you're getting better, right? As an artist, which is crazy, but I'm sure something is happening there. Um, you know, I feel like once when I watch a video like that, when I do my next gesture session, just gesture drawings, my style tends to just automatically echo what I've just seen, right? It's just something I observed. It's like I've implicitly kind of picked up how they're moving the pencil, and I just do it kind of similarly. Um, and even like the abstractions they use for the head, uh, or the torso. I mean, yeah, then that's where the fun is. It's like it's a process of discovery as much as it is a process of creation, right? You're creating it, but it's like you're also discovering it at the same time. And I think that's getting close to what gesture is. I mean, people have filled up entire books explaining what gesture drawing is. Um, and I mean, it's and everything, and yet it's nothing. It's one of those kinds of things. A gesture is it's kind of your setup for the drawing you want to do. That's what I got from Michael Hampton's new book on gesture drawing. I've started reading it, haven't read it all the way through, but yeah, even like the opening chapters of that are so well written, uh, and so inspiring. Like he's able to tell you that you're not. It's okay to be yourself, right? Or it's okay to have your own process and preference and your own way of dealing with like the gesture, right? Which is obvious to some people, but for others, like we can get so stuck up on the idea that we have to do it perfectly, right? As though there is such thing as a perfect gesture, or we have to do it correctly, um, which is also yeah just erroneous thinking, right? You With gestures, there is no correct gesture. It's just what is helping you put the figure down on the page and communicate what's happening, right? What is the figure doing? Is it clear enough to you? Number one, right? Because if you cannot tell what the gesture is, what the action is of the figure, what the pose is, the overall perspective, overall proportions, like what is the feeling of the character, their body language. Are they imposing? Are they uh, looking heroic or powerful? Uh, Subdued? All those kinds of things can be communicated with very few lines, right? Uh, You don't even need to draw a single piece of anatomy to communicate those things, even though, yeah, a lot of artists do, because we study anatomy so much, it just comes out eventually. But you don't need it. You can just use tubes, cylinders, very abstract forms to communicate the same gesture. And it can have just as much power as uh, something you spend like an hour on. Uh, so in this case, yeah, I'm actually just allowing myself to make whatever decisions are coming to me. Wherever my thoughts lead me, I'm just allowing myself to kind of go there unrestricted without trying to kind of control or rein in my process according to kind of what I've read in books and seen demonstrations. Those are also, they have their place. Like if you look at a video and then you practice that thing exactly the way they did it. That's incredibly useful when you're learning. But at some point, you just have to step away, from that. You have to do enough volume of the work to find your own uh, way of doing it. You have to find, what is it about it that you incline towards. Do you incline towards more anatomical heavy gestures, or do you align more towards, abstract lines and kind of lines of rhythm? Is it like, I know some people do very crisp gestures. Mine are more messy. Like, I scribble sometimes, which I like. I probably picked that up from John Buscema uh, and Kimo Nicolades' book. The Natural Way to Draw. Yeah. So yeah, so that's where I got kind of introduced to the practice of gesture, and it's useful. Like scribbling can sometimes navigate parts of the gesture which are which you would spend quite a bit of time just figuring out how am I supposed to traverse that, right? Like, yeah, that's sometimes you can get stuck in some section of the figure, wondering, okay, now how do I abstract this, right? um, in that case, just scribble. Oh. Just kind of look at your subject and keep your pencil moving very lightly, kind of almost like the pencil is exploring that part of the figure on its own. You're just holding it. It's the one that's moving and kind of feeling out the form. That's gonna help you navigate the parts of the figure that you cannot yet abstract, or you're not familiar with the anatomy. And the results look really good. You might surprise yourself with how well you can actually scribble the figure versus, deliberately laying down every single mark with very clean lines, right? Uh, it's worthwhile to scribble, but you have to scribble from like this awareness of the sense of touch. That's what Kimo Nicolades in his book Natural Way to Draw. That's the exercises are designed to help you build that kind of awareness. Even like the blind contour drawing exercise, that's also helps build that sense that your pencil is touching the model, not the paper, right? So your pencil is actually moving on the figure rather than on a 2D surface. Sometimes that awareness can instantly improve your mark making. You kind of trick yourself into believing that. So this here, I'm actually using this 4B Tombow pencil. I like the softer pencils for gesture. Sometimes it lets you go pretty dark if you need to for certain sections. You get quite a bit of values to play with. You can put down very light lines or very heavy lines to get some finalization on your gestures. So your searching lines can be really light, but then once you're ready to commit, you can just lay a very bold line on top. Here I'm fiddling around with the expression a bit on the head. Sometimes the head expression helps communicate the gesture, or gets the meaning across, right? Because the face is just, it's like if once you've indicated the face, it's like everything else is in a hierarchy underneath that, right? So what the face communicates, like the body is kind of assisting the face in communicating it, right? So if someone is angry, like their face is going to communicate that anger first, and then like the rest of the body is kind of aligning to support that expression. uh I'm never aware of that level of understanding when I'm doing the gesture. It's like afterwards when I look at it, I can notice that. Uh and Yeah, that awareness can be built, definitely. The more you do them, the more it's like you can just lay down the overall flow of the figure, and sometimes the flow itself will communicate the emotion, or the story. And these are fun, especially when you don't hold yourself to any um, outcome, right? That you have to have a very successful gesture drawing. Like, just allow it to be bad, allow it to be whatever it is. um, and just do your best with in that moment. I mean, that moment is only going to last for 1 minute, right? For these 1 minute and these 2 minute gestures, it's only going to be for 2 minutes. So just you know allow it to be whatever it ends up being in those 2 minutes. But it's not like you're completely um, removing yourself from the process. You're inseparable from it. You can't possibly remove yourself, but you're just kind of dialing down on the commentary in your brain, like, do this and not that. Just at least for me, when I'm doing these, I'm trying now to just allow myself to indicate whatever I need to, um, and just feel out the forms, right? Just uh, instead of just kind of being very precise with them from the beginning. It's just lay down very light but still confident line. A line can be confident and yet very light, so that you can you can go over or around that multiple times with other guesses, and one of them will be correct, right? And with a lot of these, the anatomy is kind of receiving the spotlight. At least in my awareness, I'm focusing quite a bit on the anatomy, uh, and what I see. And just trying to get the expression, or just indicate the expression very lightly, just very quickly, just although I don't want to speed myself up. I don't want to speed up my drawing process, but it's like I want to get the main ideas down first, right? It's more about the sequence and the how big are your ideas when you're starting the drawing, rather than how quickly you execute, right? That's another thing to be aware of, is you want to occupy yourself with the bigger forms, uh, rather than the smaller forms in the gesture. And the direction of forms rather than the exact appearance. So as long as your line is moving in the direction of the form, the gesture is being created, right? You can think of it like that. Even if your line is not completely following the form, if it's in that general direction, it's still serving a purpose, indicating uh, the flow, and that's going to establish your gesture. And like the beard, I sometimes spend time on the facial hair because it just becomes like, with very few marks with the facial hair, you can easily give like this very finished look. I don't know why that why that's the case, but if you just indicate like a beard or a mustache with a very simple shape and just like a little bit of value on the mustache or the beard, it instantly like establishes the identity of the figure, right? At least as a kind of a male figure, you can instantly see that it becomes less ambiguous. And the hands, for me, like in the gesture, at least the hands are just scribbles. Uh, they don't need to be anything more because it would just take up too much time to go in and shape around each finger and the curl of the fingers, and because the phalange is like five three different planes, and then the left and right of each phalange, and then the top and bottom of each phalange. So it's, yeah, lots of planes involved. So you can abstract it as a box, which is sometimes super useful. But I feel that just doing scribbles for that is sufficient, at least in a gesture. You can come back with the box on top of the scribble, just slightly erase it and then start boxing out the forms of the fingers. That's what Bridgman and even Hogarth, Burn Hogarth, do. I need to study them more because, yeah, the way they abstract the fingers and the hands is just beautiful. It's so it's so simple, and yet it has all the details necessary, right, to communicate the whole feeling of the hand. So with these drawings, yeah, that's just my goal is to practice not having any goal. you know um it's like everything I try to do, even with art, it's like there's so much pressure to create something good and meaningful, all the time, which becomes tiresome, and it becomes off-putting, just to sit down and draw. That you you sabotage yourself even before you begin with that kind of thinking, that it has to be good, it has to get a lot of likes. Yeah. We just practice creating, just practice uh, moving the pencil on the blank page and letting something take shape, right? Remove yourself from the process as much as you can, and your drawing will be good. Or, it'll be what it'll be, even like judging it to be good or bad. It's like, yeah, you can, spend time on that later, but when you're creating it, that's the wrong time to start being overly critical. You have to turn off the inner critic and just involve yourself in what is what needs to be created, right? What is missing, and to be honest about it, right? Not to be judgmental about it, just be honest about what's missing. So if I see a gesture and being honest to myself about it instead of being judgmental would mean, is the head too big? It's just a yes or no question, right? Now I can be, there's no reason for me to be anything more than a yes or no. But the inner critic will try to, voice in your head will try to convince you that you don't have talent, you always draw bad heads, or you're not good at drawing any heads. And all these like self criticisms will start to crop up, try to make you to give up trying to even get better. We would never think of doing that to anyone else, but we do it to ourselves. That's super weird. Like we would always encourage other people, but we would be super critical of ourselves in that same situation. So that's all unnecessary, right? That's what I'm trying to get at with these gestures and with this practice. I mean, even if it's assume, even if if your inner critic says that's a waste of time, well, even if it is a waste of time, I'm doing it deliberately, and it's still my choice to spend that time doing the drawing. I mean, who is the inner critic to tell me what I need to do or not to do, right? It's like, as soon as you realize you are hearing your thoughts, that's when you can ask the sincere question, who are you? Are you the one speaking your thoughts? Or are you the one listening to your thoughts? As soon as that question pops up, everything, the entire chatter just goes silent. It's so weird. Are you the listener? Or are you the one talking in your mind? Who are you? Yeah, so this gesture drawing practice, this whole session is just for fun, right? Just fill up the pages with as many gestures as possible. That's my goal. And fill it up with as many gestures, as many figures, and just put them wherever the space is to put them. But I found that even like figuring out and just quickly deciding where do you put the next gesture based on the photograph that you see, right? That is also exercising your composition skills. So this gesture drawing practice is like serving two purposes. You're practicing your abstractions, how to lay in the figure, the anatomy, how to abstract the figure. But you're also practicing, where do I place the figure, right? So how do I arrange the figure, this pose, so that it fits on the page to some extent, right? But somehow dynamically interacts with the other figures as well, that's another aspect. So like this final figure working on here, it has this very nice leaning to the left this S curve going down and kind of looking to the right. So I put it on the left, looking towards the center of the page, to kind of bring the viewer's eye back into the main, interior of the page, right? So it's composition and the way his arm flows into the center of the page, right? Kind of arcs upward towards the center. So yeah, with gesture, you're leading the eye. That's something that a lot of great instructors, like Steve Houston and Glenn Vilppu, uh, uh, teach. Is that with gestures, you're you're always composing. You're leading the eye, and you do it with this abstract flow that always exists in every figure, right? It's always there. It's like we have to learn to see it, as artists, and kind of extract it and depict it on the page. Uh, and that's where the challenge is, and the learning, right? And the fun of it is, once you learn this, once you learn to see the flow, learn to depict the flow, it becomes a really exciting exercise, right? So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed um, this little discussion of gesture drawings, and go out and do some gestures.